Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome the band Flowerhead to the show. Tonight I have Eric Schmitz, Buz Zoller, Kyle Thomas, and a special guest, Scott Byron, the A&R rep from Zoo Entertainment. We are going to talk Flowerhead, we're going to talk history, we're going to talk music. So without any further ado, let's get this one started. Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we have Flowerhead. We've got the whole band minus one member, but we've got Scott Byron here to fill in. And if anybody knows Scott Byron, he was on the Matthew Sweet show with Todd and I, but he's here tonight because he has a lot to do with Flowerhead. What I've got Eric Schmitz back. There is an interview that we did. Gosh, Eric, how long ago was that? 3 months ago, 4 months ago?
Before Christmas, yeah.
Before Christmas, we did an interview. And now we've got the rest of Flowerhead. We've got Buzz, and we've got Kyle Thomas is back. We don't have Eric Faust. He couldn't be here. But like I said, we have Scott Byron, who was the A&R rep for Zoo Entertainment, and he brought Flowerhead to the label. So I brought all these gentlemen together because, well, Eric and I kind of were talking about it, and we thought, man, this would be great if we could get the band back and Scott Byron and just kind of talk about things that happened 30 years ago. And we're going to try to get Scott to pull stuff out of his memory. But basically, we're just going to have a loose conversation and just talk about Flowerhead and how they began and the whole thing from them and the whole thing about them coming to Zoo Entertainment and Scott bringing them on and all that. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So I want to welcome everybody here tonight. Buzz, Kyle, Eric, Scott Byron. Nice to see everybody. How is everybody doing?
Great. Thanks, Grant, for having us.
I mean, when was the last time you guys have all been together like this?
I probably haven't seen these guys for 25 years.
There you go.
At least.
The thing is with Grant's Rock Warehouse is we bring bands together, you know? Just saying. But
for
it's
better
great
or for worse.
For better and for worse. Nice having you here. Gosh, where should we start, gentlemen? Eric, where should we start, for God's sakes?
You know, when you were talking about the very beginning, that's Buzz, you probably have some early stories before any of us were part of it. That's
because Buzz, that was you and Eric.
Yeah.
You came up, it was you two that got the band together. How did let's just start right there and just go over a brief history. How did that all began, Buzz?
I will give you the brief history without getting in too much in the weeds, but it really started from meeting in college as youngsters with an interest in music and acknowledging that we both kind of had me and Faust had similar tastes. We had a few other friends with us at the same time that had similar tastes. We were in Austin, Texas, which was at that time, I don't know if it still is, considered itself the live music capital of the world, and it kind of was. Everybody was in a band, or you knew somebody that was in a band, or hated someone in a band, or worked with someone that was in a band. It was really prevalent, even though we were college students. It was still that's what you did on the weekends. You didn't go to the club or go to a party. You went out to see bands, and it was really ingrained in us that was available to us. And we both had interests. Faust was definitely a more accomplished musician than I was. He had a long piano background, very smart, knew what he was doing, good singer. I was a hack with a cheapy Strat from that I'd been playing since high school. But we had similar musical tastes, similar interests. We both just wanted to do it. And as we got out of our initial dorm, moved into some apartments adjacent to each other and with each other, we realized that we were on our own and we could plug it in right here and play. And we found some drummers to play with. We found enough friends that had equipment that we could just plug it in and play, just for the fun of it. And eventually kind of found a group of us that wanted to take it a little bit more seriously, tried to get some gigs, played some parties, played some co-op parties.
Because this was
late
1980,
80s.
89, 90?
80 late 80s, 88-ish, 7, 8, 9 in there. And as we played the parties, and as I said, Faust was very accomplished, very smart, had songs in his head, know how to write songs. And we started to kind of come up with some songs on our own as we were, the late night drunk jam sessions, playing Sweet Jane and Walk on the Wild Side, whatever we could just bash out in 3 chords all night. But in that time, we also started to come up with some songs. And Faust had a little 4-track Fostex tape recorder that we started to mess around with, and started to realize how to record, how you bounce tracks from one to the other. I think we had like 2 mics. You set it up in the room, and everybody would leave, and you'd play it, and then we'd record on top. And Faust was just really good at it. And we started to record and started to just to take it more seriously. And that led us to actually deciding that we wanted to form a band. Did the old put an ad in the paper for a drummer. This was pre-Kyle. This was Pete Levine. And we found him. So we had, and actually I'll backtrack a little bit, was when Schmitz came in. Schmitz, the Erics knew each other from high school. So they had a long history, a musical history of playing together, knowing each other, knowing their interests. And that when Faust and I kind of decided that we wanted to take this more seriously, it was kind of the no-brainer that Faust reached out to Eric and basically said, "Are you available?" And Eric started playing with us. And then after we got Schmitz, then we found Pete as we decided that we wanted to be serious. And that's when we really decided to record seriously the 4-track. We had a demo of 4 or 5 songs that we would use to get gigs. And just started the ground up, playing to bars with nobody. You played to the bartender or your friends that you could pull out on a Tuesday night.
Hey, Buzz.
Yep.
Pete was originally from DC, right?
Yes, he was.
How did he come to end up in Texas with you guys?
That's a good question. I don't remember how he ended up there. I think he followed his girlfriend who had a job in Austin, and he came from DC. And as you know, he has the DC 930 Club, Scream, Dave Grohl connection. Remember that? So, and he was considerably older than us. So when we found him, he was a great guy and a great minimalist drummer. Like he had, I think his kit was like 5 pieces, and the drum was like 30 inches wide, big. Like he was like mini John Bonham, but older than us, and had a musical history. He had played in bands in DC, so it felt like we were getting somebody that could definitely help us along.
He came in. Yeah, he came in with such energy and that learned punk rock attitude. And I say it, that he had experienced it rather than just imagined it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, didn't you say, like, Eric, when we were talking before, that once he got into the band, it totally gave it that push that it needed, and the whole band totally changed when she was in the band.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, it was like, all right, we're going to turn up now. That's the way I kind of did it personally. But if you've ever seen that movie, That Thing You Do, where they're the guy's trying to, it's this slow ballad, and the drummer comes in and he's just wanting to rock it out, and that's kind of what made him have that energy. That's what it reminds me of.
No, that's well said. He definitely, like I mentioned, the John Bonham, like he was ready to rock, and I think we were maybe getting a little soft in our new wave alternative world. And
Yeah, it's that jangly, that jangly new sensibility thing. Yeah,
we turned it up. Absolutely, that was super fun.
But
And I think so that was, we had at that point we had the core, at least we thought we had the core, and we played our butts off in Austin, 6th Street co-op parties, opening for just about every band that would come through. We were there just to be seen and to be heard.
well, who was booking everything then?
It was all us.
Okay.
And up to a point, we booked ourselves. I think Faust did most of it. He really was the heart and soul of kind of the business at that point. He was really driven, and would get us in the door. We played this club in Austin called the Cannibal Club, right on 6th Street off San Jacinto, that we played a lot. Like I would say maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Like we were in there
at one point,
right down the street from our rehearsal space. We had that space on what was that street that Eric that well the upstairs one?
Yeah, I can't remember the cross street, but if anyone familiar with Austin at the time, it was the one that just had 3 letters, Art.
Yes, the art building.
Yeah,
art building.
So we had a practice space really close. So we would play there almost a few times every night, and every night we would end up there. So the owner of that club, his name was Brad First, was also a manager and managed some bands. And he had was his wife or girlfriend. What was her name, Eric?
Gretchen Barber.
Gretchen Barber. They were kind of the team that, and you probably remember the other bands that he managed at the time. He had a small roster of bands that he managed in Austin that were all kind of small time, on the way up. So he, we signed on with him, and he really helped us. He and Brad and Gretchen, one, they owned the club, so we got to play whenever we wanted. But they also helped us just get our shit together, business wide. And
if you remember, Brad was one of the best sound guys in town.
Yes, so we always sounded good. Absolutely. I think he would even go with us when we would do other, like when we played Liberty Lunch, or he would do that for us.
Right.
And that was really when things really kind of took off for us as we just played a lot in Austin. We kind of got a name for ourselves. And at that point we had the tape that we had recorded. We had the original demo that we used, to get gigs, had now become kind of a formal cassette that was called Turmoil in the Toybox. There it is.
There's the original yellow.
There's a yellow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
before that, we had the farm beer
found it
can.
last night.
The white came later. Yes.
See, Mr. Byron's
exactly.
going through his archives.
Is that the original one, Scott? Is that the one you
Yeah,
bought?
this is the one that I bought in Austin.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's the one you bought. That story you told.
Oh, this okay.
Yeah.
We got to get to that story because that one that's super cool. Like,
See, I
talk
didn't
about
see the
the
yellow
dog
one.
story.
Eric sent me the
White one.
the
Yeah.
white one, the zoo ones. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Grant, the white one is the one that Zoo had printed up
Yes.
professionally and very lovingly had shrink wrapped for us.
Oh, it's very
I
professional.
told the story. There was Sound Warehouse wouldn't let us put our tapes in unless they were shrink wrapped.
That's true.
So that's why he found it at Waterloo. But Buz very meticulously printed out all of those J cards and the labels that went on the cassettes, and one by one pasted the labels on and cut out the J cards by hand for every one of those that we had. Yep.
So we were.
There it is.
Yep. So that was we decided to release it, quote unquote, release it back then, which meant putting it on consignment at the record stores. So I think there was maybe 2 or 3 with Waterloo, Record Exchange, or Sound Exchange.
I don't think I got it at Waterloo. I think I got it at the
You did.
At the
The one
store
on-
across from the university.
Sound
Yes,
Exchange.
across from Adobe.
Sound Exchange.
Yeah,
Whatever.
it was either called Sound Exchange or Record Exchange at that point.
Yeah, I think that's where.
Yep.
Yeah, it was Sound Exchange. I know because they just leveled it like 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh no.
Oh, they did.
Oh,
Right, and the the Daniel Johnston.
Don't
part
they
of-
know that they originally sold this cassette there and they leveled it?
No,
What
that was.
the hell is going on?
I mean, it's
Well,
a
look.
little bit of a testament to the way things used to be when you would
Right.
go literally to a music store and browse
Hmm.
the records or the tapes or the CDs, and that's how you would find what you were going to listen to next. It was super fun, and that was a super small little mom and pop on the corner of the drag right across from the university. Very popular for just, I would go just about every day just because I would walk by it and you'd got to go in for a few minutes. So they put it on consignment along with this was live capital of the music that was very proud of their local scene as well. So a lot of you would go when you go see bands, it was all local bands. I mean, yes, we had our touring bands that would come through and we would see them as well, but really embrace the localness of Austin. So these music stores would have specific local sections in their stores for bands to put their stuff out, whether it was printed their own 45s or CDs.
Well, my daughter goes down to UC in
We had
Cincinnati.
done that. We had done that, and the rest is kind of history.
But my daughter goes down to UC, and there's a record store called Everybody's Records. And what you described, Buzz, is exactly what they do. They have a whole section for all those local Cincinnati artists that are putting out stuff. I mean, a lot of these independent stores still do that, you know?
Yep, it's awesome. It's amazing.
So, I mean, it's amazing. They still do that up in Columbus, like at
YouTube.
Use Kids. They have a whole section for all the local bands. So, you know,
Yep.
thank God we still have that. I mean, you know, a lot of these young kids going to these stores, they're buying the cassettes, they're buying the CDs and stuff. So, you know, there's still hope. But I'm just curious though, Buzz, but by the time the EP, I can't remember, Eric, but by the time the EP was out, Eric's on that, right? Because that came
Yes.
out what year?
90,
90, right. So up in
Yeah,
this
we
time,
did.
You got it.
Yeah,
What
we
does it
did
say?
get-
What does it say on it? What does it
Well,
say?
we did.
90.
Remember, Buzz, we did Guitar and Beer Can,
Yeah, that was the
and,
funny one.
and that's the one we did with Mike, you know, where on drums.
Yep.
And that's when we were just kind of a little more of a strummy, you know,
Yep.
jangly, the
Yep.
church kind of REM kind of thing.
Yep.
And then with Pete that's when we went into the duplex
Yes.
next to where
Yep.
Faust and Paula lived.
Oh.
And
Yep. That
we-
was
we
we had our
weren't
own
sure if we were if it was legal for us to be in there
Hmm.
or not.
no.
so back in the day though, it was Faust who brought in Eric, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when that happened, I mean, Eric, did you know Buzz then, or
Well,
I mean,
yeah, Buzz.
I mean, you guys had to
knew-
play together. Was there like a chemistry that, you know, you just can't start these bands off? You came in later, so I mean, everything had a gel.
Right. I mean, we talked about this last time. Remember, we did the North Lake Jam. We used to put on these concerts in high school as well as our high school talent shows. So we had done that, and then Buzz, you guys, you know, you may not have remembered me as specifically back then because I was just we had met each other through parties and all these things in college, but it was a couple years later. You know, the first year Faust had gone to USC to sail. And so we had that where we didn't really hang out. And then when he came back in, then we hung out a little bit more, a couple years passed. And then that's when I got into the audio production program.
Yep. Oh, that's right. You recorded with
RTF.
You recorded us with Mike.
Right. And Keith. And
Yes.
and then those songs that I did, they ended up being kind of the premier songs they would have. The RTF department would have this thing at the end of the year. They would show everybody's films or their TV commercials or those things. And in between, they would play the music. And probably 80% of it was that stuff I did with you guys. It was just so much better than everybody else's. But at that time, Faust was an advertising major.
Yep.
So he would also glom on to by the end of it, I was a teaching assistant for the guy that, you know, taught the studio class. And so I had access to it all hours of the day. And he would glom onto my board and my what was it? It was just like a half-inch 8-track or maybe it was 16-track.
it was 8 maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Super fun. Right. Yep. It's I guess it's the same DIY ethic that they have today with you in GarageBand or whatever your computer is, but we had to work a little harder at it back then.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's a different world. But then I guess my question is, did you guys feel that you needed another guitar player, I guess, to fill out the sound or what?
That's a loaded question there.
I don't know. Just
No,
is it?
absolutely. I mean,
Or, Eric's such a great guy. Let's get him in the band.
no, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
it was never going to be me. I mean,
Okay.
I'm
just curious.
I knew that we knew we needed more, and
Mm-hmm.
the more the merrier, and he had good gear too. So
Right. Well, there you go. That pretty much sums up.
Absolutely. I mean, the truth is that we knew we wanted to be 2 guitars,
Mhm.
and we knew that we were distinctly different the way that we played, and came from a little bit different places, but we both had we had the same love for Eddie. We had the same kind of love for Ozzy. We had connections, so we knew that we'd get along. And at
Well,
that
if
point,
you listen to those
we were all
records,
about community stuff.
if you listen to the records, though, the guitar interplay is very good. I mean, you guys kind of bounce off each other.
Yep.
There's a certain, I don't want to say yin and yang, but you guys just bounce off each other really well.
Right.
So I think it worked perfectly for the band, Well,
It could have
Yeah,
worked
we
better.
definitely weren't 2 guys trying to play the same kind of thing. We
right.
would
If you
always
think
have
of
our own
a lot of those 2 guitar bands, you've got to have 2 distinct players.
Yep.
One guy plays one thing, the other guy plays something else, and together it
Yep.
creates this.
Yep, and really the
magic.
beauty of that was that there was never a lead guitar player and a rhythm, like that the classic lead and rhythm.
Mhm.
That never really existed for us. I think we came from a guitar. I mean, like I mentioned, like Eddie and Randy, and like we knew our guitar heroes, and we knew who they were, and we knew that we weren't them, and that the tide at the time was not to be them. But there was a musical kind of emergence that guitars really didn't have to be that. They
Mhm.
really could be something different, and we both kind of explored that from the beginning of just like, we didn't play the part. It wasn't like, okay, now you go, now I go, you go, I go,
Right.
or it was really I don't know if you remember Jesus and Mary Chain
Yeah.
was kind of a game changer for me as far as a guitar player. Because to me, up until that point, guitar really was, you played the note, you played the chords, everything worked together. And that music really just said that the guitar doesn't have to be that. It can be loud and noisy and be just as musical. So we really embraced a lot of
Yeah.
that
And it
experiment.
happened. I was going to say it happened in the writing too, and Eric played guitar as well, and so he would say, "Well, why don't you do this a little bit?" Well, we certainly had our songs where, okay, one guy's doing the rhythm part, another
Yep.
guy's kind of doing a lead or a solo break. But a lot of us, more of what we did was, I'm going to do this while you do this. Let's put it together, see how it works, and most times it did.
I mean, would that, depending on the songwriting, it would depend who's playing what, like as far as the guitar parts, or did you just kind of divvy it up?
We kind of winged it. I mean,
Mhm.
ultimately, all those songs came out of just jamming in a room for hours and just seeing what happened. And you would kind of come up with things as on your own as it was happening, and you would know right away whether it was kind of any good or not. So I think it really was more organic than being prescribed or written. Hindsight's 2020. Maybe we should have been smarter about harmonic things and been a little bit more planned and organized. But at the time, it was just let's just go and
Let's just have fun. Yeah, let's rock. Yeah.
A structure came out of what you were doing. It wasn't like Fish jam band kind of thing. It definitely ended up
Oh,
you
for
know,
sure.
being songs.
And that was really Faust. I mean, like I said, super smart, super musical, way more kind of talented than I was when it comes to that stuff. And I think he was the one that would, at the end of the day, he'd be like, all right, this is now here's the structure. Now here's how you really do it. You know, you come up with great things. Now here's how you really do it.
And then we'd
like,
have those songs that would be, you know, somebody would listen to it and they would say, you know, the way that transitioned, it was almost like you took two completely different songs and just kind of stuck them, made them work together. Yeah, that's exactly what we did.
exactly.
Of course. Well, so you're playing, you get the cassette in the store. It's out there. People are buying it. And then Scott Byron, I believe, Scott, you were down there for like some music festival. What was the story?
I tracked down the chronology last night. There was a battle of the bands in Austin in October. It was October 12th, 1990 at the Palmer Auditorium. And I don't remember if I was asked there or whether I just went as an A&R person, but I spent a couple of days in Austin, and whenever I go to a city like that, I just go around to different record stores and see what's going on. And that was when I bought it, along with 4 or 5 other things. And it sat around for a couple of months. I didn't even listen to it right away. It was just, you know, I just took the tape home and put it in the pile like everything else. And then in January of 91, I grew up as a New York Giants fan, and the Giants made the Super Bowl, and I decided in January that I was going to drive to Tampa Bay and try to get into the game. I didn't even have a ticket, and it was about a 2-day drive, and I just loaded a bag full of tapes and drove to Florida. And it was on that drive that I heard the tape and played it a few times and really liked it. And, you know, when I got home, that's when I called the band and said, you know, I'd like to come and see you. I don't remember who I spoke to. But I believe that I came down to South by Southwest in March of 91, and that's when I saw the band for the first time.
So what was it about that cassette when you were listening to it that grabbed you? Because obviously, you know, you were listening to a lot of music then, and you know, you're listening for certain thing. But do you recall what was it about that cassette that grabbed you?
Well, the mix of the psychedelic side and the hardish rock. You know, I think that was what kind of got me, the guitar interplay and the psychedelic vibe.
There's that guitar interplay, boys.
Definitely had some psychedelics.
Yeah, and we're talking 91, who was really doing anything quite like that then? I can't think of anybody, you know.
Well, I mean, the closest comparison at that time was probably Soundgarden.
Or the Pumpkins.
Pumpkins, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that you guys don't sound like the Pumpkins, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I guess
we were in the same. We were in the same ballpark for sure.
Right.
I do know that there were people that were disappointed almost that we weren't more psychedelic. So there were some people out there that wanted more flower power, more hippie, you know, of an image and things. And so sometimes I think some people were a little bit let down that, and it's like, well, yeah, I see where you're getting that, but that's not necessarily what we're really about.
Right.
Yeah. So when Scott, I think you talked to Faust probably. I mean, we were over the moon, to be honest, that somebody gave anything about us at that point, really, from a record label.
I think we were even.
I remember when I came and saw the band that I spent maybe an hour at somebody's house. With you guys, maybe it was Faust's house.
I probably was.
And just you guys just hung out on the couch and we chatted a bit. And and then I had to go back to the label and see if anybody else
Felt the same
liked
way.
it.
And this was still pre-girlfriend though, so you haven't even
No,
brought
I mean,
Matthew, or
I
was
think
it around the same time?
I think it was after Girlfriends.
Oh, it was
after.
after. Okay.
It was after.
And I think that gave me a little bit of a, I mean, if I remember correctly, I think that gave me a little bit of a pass at the label. They were a little more trusting because, they already had heard that. There was also another thing I looked up, and I don't remember how it happened with you guys, but I also just checking my notes here. Sometime right after that, Leslie Aldridge was a friend of mine, and we went to see a concert. We went to see ZZ Top in Providence, and again on the ride, which takes about like an hour and a half from Manhattan, I played her the tape and said, I really like this band. I'm trying to sign it. And she freaked out too. I don't remember how she approached the band and how she became the manager, but I just played it because it was something that I liked,
Mhm.
Right.
and I wanted to share it with somebody.
Right. And she was a legitimate manager at that point too, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
so it was,
Scarce was, there were a couple of things that she managed.
yeah.
So did she reach out to you guys to manage you guys? How'd that come about?
Well, I remember meeting her at South by Southwest, Scott. I remember her being by the pool, Wayfair glasses on, and
It sounds like a song.
yeah. But I mean, she just was like, all right, that's the New York manager we probably need. That was the impression that I had. She was really cool.
Well, one of the things that happened to me when I started doing A&R was there was a band from San Francisco that I really liked a lot, that I was kind of talking to the label about, but I really didn't get along with their manager. And I said something about maybe we can convince the band to change managers. And somebody came down on me really fast and said, no, you can't do that, because if you get involved in the choice of manager, the old manager can sue you. And so I was scared. I did not say to her, you should manage this band. She just went off and somehow contacted you guys on her own, because there's no way that I would have said anything at that point like they need a manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think I mean, obviously fuzzy memories, but I kind of remember that she did reach out, and just pointed out that we had major label interest, and we had a small town manager, and that we really at some point we're going to need to upgrade our management, and she convinced us that she was the one. I mean, we didn't shop around. She sold us, and
Yeah,
I do remember that
a big
the
part of it
conversation
was
that we had to get rid of our old management was not a pretty picture.
right. And I mean, it's like you're saying, it wasn't even necessarily like getting rid of anyone or anything like that, but it came down to the business part of it. There was money on the table, and we already had local legal representation in Austin, and at one point they were ready to just take the very first offer, and we kind of wanted to negotiate a little bit, because we thought, we're so new into this that we still have time to see if something else is going to happen. And Scott, it was Eric Faust that you called, because you called the number to the Flower House, which is the one that we put on the tapes. And so part of that was, with your label, although, it was, I mean, tell me if it wasn't, but BMG was intentionally trying to create a label that looked like an indie label that maybe not everyone had heard of. to get away from the RCAs and the Aristas of the world. So when we heard Zoo, we didn't quite know, but you did have Matthew Sweet at that point, because that was the name that you dropped that we all were sharing, and we were like, oh, Matthew Sweet, okay, yeah, he's cool, you know. So that was a big piece of that.
I mean, Zoo was created at a time when record labels were expanding very aggressively. I think we talked about this in the Matthew Sweet call, but what happened was the introduction of the CD format was a financial windfall for the labels, because everybody, well, not everybody, but almost everybody went out and bought the same records that they already had in this new format, and the labels didn't have to spend any marketing money. So all of a sudden there's this huge windfall of cash from people buying CDs, and all the major labels did this. They created auxiliary labels where, you know, the talents could be driven by you know, somebody at the top who had a vision, and in our case it was Lou Malia. They hired Lou Malia from Ireland, and said, Lou, you know, we'll give you a bunch of money and go and form your own imprint. And that's where it happened. There wasn't a specific idea to be, you know, more independent or anything, you know. So most of the stuff that was signed at the beginning of the label was actually pretty commercial. Rhythm Tribe was the first band. They didn't make it, but Phyllis Hyman in the R&B, and you know, there was a hard rock band, and then later on Tool, and it was not meant to be small and independent. It was meant to be something exciting, driven by Lou's vision, and he got it. You know, I don't remember who my boss was at that time when I first submitted the tape. Who was in charge of A&R at that time?
It was George Daly.
Okay. Yeah, who I had a bad confrontation with about Matthew. He didn't get Matthew. Somebody else.
I think we talked about that in the Matthew Sweet episode. Anybody, just to bring everybody up to date, there is an interview on my channel with Scott. I broke it out over 3 because we were talking forever. But Scott goes way into more detail about this stuff in the Matthew Sweet episode. So check in my links down below. It's fascinating stuff. But anyway, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
You know, we had an A&R call every week, and I circulated the tape, and people seemed to get it, you know, and you know, I don't remember who authorized it or did we do a showcase for the label guys, or did they just
there was one in LA. We did an LA showcase with Tool, maybe.
Well, no, that was with Green Jello, but that was after
after
Bloom was already.
That was after you got signed.
Maybe did we do a New York show or something, or
well, there was a CMJ show after.
We did a CMJ showcase.
That was 92, and but
that was
I don't
at the end of
remember.
the
Maybe somebody else. Yeah, maybe somebody
CBGB.
else flew down to Texas to see you also, but I mean, I had seen you, and it was, I guess it was enough for them. And you know, I don't remember who okayed the deal, whether it was Lou or George, but you know, it went through. Maybe Leslie flew to LA and gave him the song and dance, but you know, it happened.
Yep.
Did you have a publishing deal before the record deal or after?
It was after.
Okay.
Yeah, the Polygram 50-50 deal came after. But you know, the one thing I wanted to hear about, if you can remember, is I seem to remember George Daly had you know, an idea that he was going to produce our record. And so I always wonder if that had anything to do with. Is he the one? I thought for sure there was somebody at Zoo that wanted to produce.
I don't remember that at all.
And we were able to talk them out of it.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. But you know, the first thing we did was to try to, build a buzz on the band by circulating the Turmoil
Yep.
tape, and then you had a tour behind that before you recorded the record, right?
Right. That's when we went with the Hypnotics, the band from the UK, that we were convinced was just a reincarnated Rolling Stones. I mean, they looked like them, they sounded like them, they acted like them.
They wanted to be them.
Yeah.
They wanted to be the
Little
Stones.
Aerosmith.
Well, they were really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That was
the
pretty
late-
extensive, though, right? That was a
It-
pretty.
Yeah, it was pretty much the East Coast side of things. So we hit all the clubs that and anyone else on tour,
Well,
and it culminated at CMJ.
But was that like the first thing that you guys ever really did where it was like an extensive tour to some degree? Had you ever done anything like that before, either Buzz or Eric? No. I bet
No.
that was really something.
I mean,
Be young
that-
guys and do that, holy crap.
Before that, it was, maybe Dallas. It wasn't really even Dallas that much even then, but Houston, San Marcos, Little Rock, Shreveport, just some of the closer in places, but those weren't even, we didn't even really ever connect those. We would just drive to those shows and then come back.
That was our that was our introduction there, getting out on the road. It was super fun.
Of course, I think Kyle just kind of giggled there because we came full circle. When we had Kyle, we came full circle. We ended up doing that kind of stuff again.
Yes, we did.
Hey, what was the longest?
I know I keep excluding Kyle, but I'm trying to build up to where Kyle can come on board.
Kyle has his moment. He comes in.
Because his moment. Well,
I'm a drummer, but
let's just before we get to Kyle, who's wonderful, but let's at least acknowledge that since this is a history, that
right.
Pete is no longer with us.
Right.
Absolutely.
He passed away a few years ago from some kind of horrible disease. So, we miss.
Heartbreaking. He was a driving force that, like I said, he was a little bit older than we were, and we all looked up to him. He had the experience, and we were just kind of followers at that point. But
yeah.
he brought like Eric said, he brought the energy. He was the one that made us crank it up. I mean,
it was after
we played loud. We played loud. And I think
guys,
that was a lot.
You guys wouldn't know this, but I actually am so thankful I had the opportunity. But just a couple years ago, I guess it was probably in the midst of the pandemic when this whole Zoom thing started happening, just through a completely unrelated Facebook group that Pete was in, we ended up on a Zoom together. So I actually got to see him and kind of have this kind of
oh, cool
interaction with him. Just a couple of years ago, which was pretty awesome. And
so it was after the tour that we recorded the album, right?
I think we went.
How long?
Pretty
How
quick.
long was it?
It was very quick.
well, remember, so that would have happened in the fall of '91, and then in '92 was when we went to Mitch Easter's drive-in studio in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Well, how did you hook up with Mitch?
Scott?
I think it was Leslie's idea.
Yep, I think it was.
And I mean, it didn't quite gel.
Yep. I mean, I think, Scott, wasn't it that there was the one, okay, once you've decided that you're going to do the album, now you've got to find a producer. And so kind of the search was on, and it was all hands on deck. And I think his name came up from Leslie or you or whoever. His name came up, and he's like, raised his hand like, yeah, yes, I'll take the job. I want to do it. All right, like, I'm interested. I want the money. So we drove up and spent 2 days at his house, his studio that is in his house with his mom, who brings you.
Oh, so was it the
IT.
drive-in studio then?
Yes,
It
drive-in
was his
Okay.
drive-in studio, and it was longer. It probably should have been 2 days, Buzz.
Are you sure?
I think it was like a week, and I think maybe it was probably too long on everybody that contributed to the. As
Didn't
Scott
they
said,
get accused of stealing something when we were there?
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but
His mom didn't accuse you, did she?
I don't know. I don't know about that, especially since he had so many guitars that whatever petty thing he was talking about. That guy had every guitar and amp that you could imagine, and his house was huge.
Mm-hmm.
The drive-in studio was in his parents' house, which was on this huge property, but then off a few blocks away was his house, and
okay.
Under every bed and every closet was just guitar case after guitar case, and he didn't mind. He said you could go, and we would get back late at night and just be pulling stuff out from underneath the beds, going whoa,
just to look.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Well, I know he's had some really cool stuff because I know he had a lot of Rickenbackers. He had. This is going off on a tangent. I could talk guitars too if you want, but he had
Easter outtakes.
He had like a mid-60s Rickenbacker 360 that was double bound like the old Ricks used to be before they went to the rounded top. And it was originally green, like a green, instead of being fire glow, it was like a green glow, if you're talking Rickenbacker colors, but it was green, but he sold it. But I saw him in one of those Rickenbacker user groups talking about it. I mean, he's had all kinds of great stuff. I mean, the guy was into it.
Literally had the collection of
everything.
Everything.
Like Christmas, you just opened a closet and some like 60s Strat would fall out. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. I'll go through some pictures for you, Grant.
I'd love to see it.
I have a bunch of pictures from there, Buzz. I know the one where you've got the Modern.
Yes,
had one of those Gibson Moderns, and
Modern.
He also had a PRS endorsement, so he had all kinds of sweet, brand new.
I've seen
untouched PRSs laying around.
I've seen a Let's Active show. I don't know what year it was from. A later one, and he's playing a Paul Reed Smith.
Yeah,
I saw that. I thought, God, I just couldn't imagine him playing a Paul Reed Smith. That doesn't sound. It's not like a traditional enough guitar. It seems more modern.
Yeah, so we,
give him a '64 Rickenbacker. I could see that.
Those things play so sweet, though. I definitely understood it after spending some time there.
But when you were with Mitch, though, did you lay down any tracks at all, or was it basically you guys were meeting?
So it was, the idea was, it was kind of like the interview for him if he's going to produce a record or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that we would show up and he would record a couple of songs with us, and we just kind of see what happens. And we did, and we have them. They're pretty good, to be honest. Very different, but pretty good. I will say that the one thing that I remember about recording there, and Eric will probably attest to this too, I've never been in a guitar room that was that freaking loud. I think Eric, when you played through like an orange amp or something.
Yep, that Mad amp.
It was just like a house, like somebody's house, and it was so like loud, like bone shattering loud, which should have been our marker to say that yes, this is our guy. At the end of the day, it didn't feel right. I think we maybe were a little bit like, I wouldn't say full of ourselves, but like we had a vision, and it didn't seem like his vision was lining up with what we really felt like we could do, which is why ultimately we kind of decided that, good, bad, or indifferent about it, we decided that first record we should just do it ourselves.
Well, on paper, though, I'm just going to say on paper, Mitch Easter with you guys, you would think that'd be a great match.
It was hard, being at his house and you see his gold records or platinum records, whatever he had, and he was still like, oh, I'm going to get around to hanging those up someday. He had several of them from the REM records, just kind of tucked behind, leaning against a wall behind a chair, but they were still there, and yeah, so it's kind of tough to turn down anyone that has that.
You just would think it would work, but whatever. It's all good. So anyway, you did that. That didn't work out. How did you?
When they came
Go ahead,
back to me and said that they'd like to produce themselves, or it came through Leslie, I don't remember, but our decision was that that's okay, but we have to find the right studio and the right engineer
Yes.
to get it down. And I guess that's how we ended up with Steve Marker, right?
Yep. At Smart, which is no
Well,
longer.
If you call, that was Brian Anderson, and he was actually at a South by Southwest. We had met him at a South by Southwest right before we had left to go to Madison. But you know, as part of that, you know, we ended up meeting Butch, you know, a couple different times, but he was just kind of in and out. So it's not like he was really present on the record. But as things progressed, Duke Erickson and Steve Marker, who I naively thought were just, these are these old local guys hanging around the studio, and the things they did, of course, way later even, really blew me away. But yeah, it was Steve Marker who ended up engineering most of the record.
Yeah, and that was a massive right.
And I think it ended up being a pretty inspired choice.
Yeah, they were cool.
I mean, did they kind of help? Did they like co-produce it, or I mean, they, you know, I can't imagine that they would just let you go free, you know, with no reins. You hadn't been in the studio really before, you know what I mean? But
well, I think that was Scott's point, was that like he knew that they knew that we had a vision and that we were smart and knew kind of how we wanted to sound, and we had decent songs. And the technical stuff was just technical stuff. We just needed somebody that was good enough to take what we had in our heads and put it on tape, and have and with some you know, some trust that they knew what they were doing. And Smart was Butch Vig's studio, and at that point Butch Vig was kind of having a moment. This was like pre Nevermind or right after Nevermind?
Well, Nevermind's 91.
It was after.
Yeah, this was after.
This was like so this was as Nevermind was kind of blowing up. It wasn't kind of the thing yet, but it was on its way. And I think that gave Scott and his team some trust that, all right, if we put them in here, maybe some of that mojo will rub off, and that those are the same engineers. I mean, ultimately Nevermind was not produced or recorded at the same studio. They did it, I think.
Right. They redid it.
But it got a lot of things there, and the DNA was kind of born there. And I think that gave us a little, you know, we felt like we belonged, and that we were in the right hands, and we knew that we could play loud guitars in there, and they would sound good.
So Scott, did you have to go to the sessions at all and check and see what they were doing at all, or did you just let them?
I mostly let them be, but I went up there for maybe how long were you there for? A few weeks, right?
Two.
I want to say 6.
I think it was.
What I've read is like a couple of months.
There for like a week. I think I spent about a week, maybe 3 or 4 days, just kind of, you know, hearing what was going on. But mostly I let them do what they do, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, Scott, you were great. I mean, it was like that. You would just kind of pop in. You didn't hover over us. You didn't try to take over. I mean, from the horror stories, I guess you hear that of heavy-handed A&R guys, you were the exact opposite of that. And we loved that.
I just wanted to be kept in the loop, you know, and I got lots of tapes in the mail and lots of DATs and cassettes. I actually found my box of tapes last night, and there's like maybe 50 tapes that I got from the studio at different times, and a bunch of DATs.
I just keep waiting for that Flowerhead reissue campaign to come out with all these, like a box set with all the bonus tracks and all that.
If it was good, we put it out.
Well, you'd have to go through the Scott Byron collection. You'd have to find a DAT machine first
The
of all.
alternate mixes, right?
The alternate mixes. God, I love
Well,
it.
remember, we always had supermodel Jim Wilson that would come back in at the end. That happened on both records. We really only recorded Everything Is Beautiful with Jim Wilson at Cedar Creek. It was just a song that we had come up with after we were done, and we were going to do some remixing anyway.
Yep.
And so we cut that one completely separate, and you can really hear, I can really hear the difference.
So
from the rest of the record.
So when Kaboom was done, I mean, they submitted it. Do they submit it to you, Scott, and you run with it, or do you listen? How does that work? Once the record's done, who decides the record's done with you guys?
I mean, ultimately, it's the label's decision, but it's cooperative with the band. I don't remember if I felt like there was something missing, and I encouraged you guys to record another song. Is that why you did Everything Is Beautiful, or did you do that on your own?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I couldn't tell you on that one.
I think once we were back in the studio to work on, we realized, hey, we're not done yet. And we had that song by that point that we didn't have just a few weeks prior.
If it may have just been let's just do it because we can.
And remember, we did this same thing with the People's Fuzz too. And you guys know from my messages earlier that I kind of really wanted to get into this. But on that one, we had Robbie Adams, who had been an engineer with U2, come in, and it was really going to be his first, with the title of producer behind it. And then, of course, we learned that at that point, he was a really good engineer, but we kind of had some of the same concerns and some of the things, especially Eric. He had, like Buzz said, with somebody that has a vision like he does, we may be sitting there thinking we're done, and he's telling us we're not done, and then you just kind of have to go along with it to see what happened. And so, but for me anyway, from my perspective, it created a really kind of a weird situation, because we had completely mixed the People's Fuzz at Chick Corea's Mad Hatter Studios out in LA. And then we had done that with Robbie and with the engineers there, who were all, some of them have really gone on to do great things in their own right there. But again, when we decided that we weren't done and that we were potentially going to remix, we got together with Jim Wilson again, and we added a bunch of new tracks and that weren't there in the previous mixes. So that's why in the People's Fuzz you have, I don't remember what they are, but it's tracks 1, 2, 5, 7, and 9 mixed here, and then these other tracks mixed at the other place.
Yep.
Well, when were you at the Carriage House?
Now the Carriage House was Lou Giordano. That was on Kabloom.
Yeah.
And then it was Faust just flew up there for that.
Oh, Connecticut or something, Maine, or where was that one?
Yeah.
It was Connecticut.
Yeah, it was in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And so that was just Faust going up there, and
that was during mixing.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the only one of us that was present during mixing, and then on the People's Fuzz, Kyle and I were there, and you remember this, Scott, and Buzz was in love. I'm teasing.
Buzz was in love. Okay, now here we go to the real meaty stuff. Go ahead.
No, Buzz was in love, but Kyle and I, somehow we figured out that, hey, I know what it was. A big part of it was that Eric was going to be staying with his sister, who I knew really well from high school, his older sister Diana, and so that there was no expense. Well, until we would lock ourselves out of the place one night. Kyle remembers that.
That would be a problem.
But with best laid plans, Kyle and I would say, we're just going to sit back, and we'll just sit back here. And and eventually we got sent away. Here, take this portable digital recorder and go get cool samples of stuff. And it was basically just a way to send me out. And so we would just go out in these adventures all over LA and Hollywood. And Kyle had been out there to a lot of places, so he was like my tour guide the whole time.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
What was that place that we would go just to kind of meditate and chill out?
Man, I don't know. Did we go to Griffith Park or did we go? No, we went to the Self-Realization Fellowship.
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds earthy.
Griffith Park because Chick's place was right next to Griffith Park Observatory. But yeah, that place where we would go.
That's right.
And I just remember just being my usual boisterous self, and Kyle's like, "Hey man, chill. You gotta relax here, man." I finally got it about halfway around the pond,
Yeah, the pond. That place was in Pacific Palisades. It was Yogananda Paramahansa's place. They call it the Self-Realization Fellowship, yoga, Kriya yoga. I don't know that much about it, but man, the first time I walked into that place, I didn't know what it was. Man, there's a vibe in that place, man. You felt it, right, Eric?
Yeah, it took me, about 20 minutes until I finally realized what you
felt
were
the
talking
vibe.
It's the vibe, man.
Because I'm like, look at the size of that lily pad, and he's like, "Hey, man,
just cool, man. Just hang out and mellow out."
Dig, man. We got to be cool.
Right. So real quick before we really go on to the next record, I know you kind of touched on it, but when Kabloom came out, how did you guys feel about it? Were you happy with the record? Did you feel like it was everything you wanted it to be? Just curious.
Yeah. Well,
how do you look at it now?
Yeah, to be honest, it was kind of a whirlwind that we almost kind of didn't have time to really think about it and enjoy kind of what was really happening. We were young and ambitious, and things were happening. We saw the gold at the end of the rainbow, and we were like, we want to go, and everything just happened very quickly. I think we quickly went on the road.
You made a video too.
We did a video in LA. We did showcases. Like there was the media push behind it. Kind of it became a machine that we were just kind of riding along, and we were completely naive looking back.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of questioned nothing and just like rode the train and hope for the best. But we loved the record. I mean, those were the songs that were our bread and butter. So we played those songs night and day, regardless of if the record was coming out. And now we had a purpose, and we had a video. So we kind of had a quote unquote single. We had the song that was going to be the one that felt really cool to be a band that had a single, and it gave the whole thing some validity.
Look, I was really happy with the record, and I found that one of the things about Girlfriend was that I had to be a very aggressive champion just to get people to support it, and I had to do a lot of advance work. But for whatever reason, I think people at the label really got Kabloom pretty quickly. I mean, right. The college radio people, even the commercial radio people, the press people, everybody, kind of got it right away. And, I mean, it didn't like blow up, but it got a lot of attention, and people, people really supported it. We also worked pretty closely with a lot of the regional BMG people. They had a whole crew of alternative promotion people scattered around the country, and they were very supportive. I found this last night. I don't know if you remember this. It's like a rubber stamp of the
Oh,
Flowerhead
that's awesome.
logo.
How
we-
cool
we-
is that?
Oh man.
And we made these for the regional BMG reps so that they could stamp. Let me find a piece of paper here. It actually still works. So they could stamp all of their packages as they were going out with the Flowerhead logo.
Oh, that's
Oh
dope.
my God, that is wonderful.
Oh my God, I got to get on eBay and find one of those.
I need one too.
Well, I know I
My
have
collection,
one, I'm not sure.
Eric, my collection is incomplete. We've got work to do.
That's right.
There has to be some floating around out there.
So,
I'm
you
sure
know,
there's plenty of things that we don't have.
Eric will
And
be
then,
sitting
you
in
know,
his
and there
office
were-
just
and there
stamping Flowerhead on
you know,
all
and
kinds
there
of
were
stuff.
stickers, there were stickers, there was the hat,
Stickers.
there were,
Hats.
there there was a beanie too, if I
I got the
remember.
beanie.
What?
Beanie.
Yeah. So there was a lot of support. When did the vinyl come out? Was that just for college radio?
That was
You-
just
you
a
know-
promo, right?
Yeah, the vinyl was for doing those things like you talk about for all of the college radio and any radio or anywhere that the BMG side wanted to promote us. But for us, that really kicked in when Kabloom was had run its course and we had moved on. I guess it was probably you, Scott. Somebody from the label called and said, "Hey, you guys want like 100 cases of green vinyl?" And
There it is.
And we said sure, and so we ended up with a ton of those, and we used to just throw them out and during shows, and I think I ended up with a couple boxes, and I've got a few left.
Yeah,
Well,
probably.
that was like one of the things that I've got a bunch of them too. There was a bunch. That was the difference that like 1 year made. I tried to get them to do a vinyl version of Girlfriend, and they absolutely refused. Even Lou said vinyl is dead. The label won't do
Well,
any
91
vinyl."
was about, from what I understand, talking to a friend of mine who has a record store, he said 91 was like the last year
Yeah.
that the majors even produced anything. I mean, you'll get stuff like Foo Fighters album came out, Stone Temple Pilots, those records came out, very limited pressings.
Let's mention just since you mentioned the Foo Fighters. I don't know if you know that Flowerhead is mentioned in a Foo Fighters song.
Yep.
What was the name of the song?
I don't know, I
It's
think
actually
Eric might have
in
mentioned
the
that.
lyrics.
Watershed.
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned it. If not, but yeah, it was on the very first Foo Fighters record, and like Buzz mentioned earlier, Pete knew Dave Grohl, and then was in contact with the same circle of friends that they had from DC, and not only were they ones kind of giving us daily updates when Smells Like Teen Spirit was just exploding, but they were also the ones that called up Pete and said, "Hey, you got to get that Foo Fighters record. There's a song on there where he mentions you guys." And it's the song is Watershed.
Yep.
And it's kind of punky, thrashy, and so it is difficult to make out the lyrics. But the lyric is, "I want to go to the watershed. I want to listen to Flowerhead." And it was a little funny offshoot of that story. Many years later, my nephew is playing guitar and with some kids in his high school band, and those kids in the internet, they got a thing going on the internet where they weren't saying I want to listen to Flowerhead. They were saying I want to listen to Crawdads, which was my nephew's band. So there's stuff out there that tells the story as if it was my nephew's band that the Foo Fighters are singing about. And then there's another thing on Wikipedia where it specifically says it's not us. That Dave Grohl is referring to the DC-based band Flowerhead. And it's like that's somebody getting confused with us playing in
It's
DC.
Wikipedia.
And we were in DC, and somebody knew Pete from DC, and they just thought it was just another band, DC band that Pete was in. But yeah, Wikipedia.
So fun.
So
So
the Boom came out in 92, People's Fuzz came out in 95. That seems like a big gap in time to me.
well, there was
in
a
the
lot
90s.
of touring. There was a lot of touring.
Mhm.
What were
Yeah.
the tours that you guys were on?
Well, and remember, we recorded the People's Fuzz in the springish summer of '94. And so the anticipated release would have been the fall of '94. And I forget exactly what happened. I think it was because we weren't going to be touring during that period that I'm not sure, but I think that's why they pushed the release into the spring of '95. And I think that it was probably also centered around South by Southwest. Scott, you talked about this, I think, in one of your other things, that 1995, that was that bittersweet South by Southwest where you guys were there. Zoo had a huge stage. We didn't even have to apply to get accepted in the South by Southwest that year because Zoo had their own stage. So we were up there with, I believe, Matthew. I believe we played right before Matthew. We played after Matthew and before Shaver or something like that. I know we were between Shaver and Matthew, whatever the lineup was. And,
Yeah, that was for me because I had just been let go and I went down to the showcase anyway to support you guys.
yeah, you were there. Bud was there. I mean, all you guys were there.
But that's when they let a lot of people go, right? That was the mass exodus, right?
Yeah, the BMG, I mean, briefly, BMG was, because that windfall of cash from the CDs had dried up, they brought in a corporate manager to try to cut expenses, and they basically put the word out to every division of Bertelsmann that they had to let go 1/3 of their people. And it was up to the label heads and the department heads to decide who would go. And in my case, they basically said, okay, we have 100% Fun, Matthew's album. We have the People's Fuzz. What do they need me anymore for? Let's keep the promotion people. Let's keep the marketing people. We don't need the A&R person.
Like, you've already done your job.
Well,
yeah, I remember, didn't it go like this, Scott? That they first they put a moratorium, no new signings, and that's kind of when I think everyone kind of figured out.
Like, uh-oh.
Yeah, so then there was a moratorium on no new signings, and then the next was the hit that you guys had to take.
Yeah, that wasn't a very long time that they stopped signing, but
right.
It was they brought in a Wall Street financial manager and they ran the playbook, which was just downsize.
Yep.
I know within the hospital industry, once you hear that they're hiring somebody to come in and take a look at things, what's coming.
Well, and for me, one of the things about Zoo was that they did not have dedicated product managers for each release. So I assumed that role for all of my releases. I would do a sketch of a marketing plan. I would help choose the singles. I would propose, what special products to do, like the vinyl or in Matthew's case, that 7 single, the Super Deformed EP that we did. These are ideas that had to come from me because there wasn't a product manager who took over each release. And basically what that did when it came to the People's Fuzz and 100% Fun is it let the, I had kind of mapped out what I thought should happen at the beginning of the release, but nobody was there to shepherd it through after that. It was up to managers and the heads of the other departments, but they don't have the same passion for it that the A&R person had, that I had for it. And eventually it just, petered out. I mean, you guys did get some very good tours, both before and after the release of the album.
I would like to go
Yeah.
back in time a little bit when Grant was saying like between Kabloom and People's Fuzz. Definitely want to talk about People's Fuzz, especially since we have Kyle here.
Well, yeah, I wanted to know
we
when
we did tour a
Kyle
lot.
came on board.
We spent our time touring, and the big one was that we spent a lot of time with Blind Melon on the road, and early Blind Melon. Like, what was the first single that they had? That was
No rain.
Way before No Rain. The one book way but when he was nobody, and his only Shannon's only claim to fame was that he was in that the Guns N' Roses video as the cousin or whatever of Axl. But they were definitely, they were up and coming. They had that a little bit of the psychedelic stuff in there. We shared the wink wink nudge nudge with what that means with them. So there was a synergy, and they definitely had, and Scott probably knows more about this, they had money behind them at that point. They were really being pushed, and with good reason. It ultimately paid off with
paid off was right, and that was
well, didn't that record come out like in 92 or something, and it took like a year for it to take off or something?
Well, it was it was it was an MTV thing. It was once MTV embraced the video, it really exploded for them. But I don't remember if that was while you were touring with them or before or after.
It was a little of both. I mean, I remember hearing that song when they play it during their show or during sound check, going that's going to be the hit. And of course, I'm sure I wasn't the only one thinking that, but definitely that connection, that was a Leslie thing, because she was friends with Teresa Intignat, who was Guns N' Roses
at Geffen.
At Geffen. Yeah. And so I'm sure that's where that connection came from at the time.
Tones of Home, that was the song I was remembering.
Tones of Home was the big.
Yes,
that's the one they bring the house down every night with.
Yep.
Wasn't that the name of the album tour too?
I think it was.
Well, what was the album?
Was just eponymous. I think it was just Blind.
I think it was just Blind Melon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one was Soup, and I remember that getting just torn apart by the critics.
But you guys
was so good.
You guys toured with them for quite a long time.
Yeah, we would just join them on different legs. Usually when they were closer to our area. Although I do remember playing West Coast with them a lot. Yep. I mean, one of my, I don't know if it's a favorite story or not, but I know, Kyle, you were with us at that time, and we were talking about Kozik earlier. I remember he was sitting right behind us at the show, but we were also really good friends with Blind Melon's crew. And I think they called you Buzz. I forget the guy's name now. But I believe it was one of the Kevin or Keith or something like that. One of the guys that was in their crew called us up when they were playing with on a tour with Neil Young and Dinosaur Jr.
Right.
And so we got to go, and so we had pretty good seats in the in the arena, the drum at now I'm forgetting it because now it's called Moody or whatever. It's in the new place, but it was the basketball arena on the UT campus. So it was, it was the legit concert, and so we watched Blind Melon's show, and then they came and got us, and their crew guys came and got us, and we watched Dinosaur Jr. kind of off the stage. I remember being, just right behind Jay Mascis and that whole pedal rig he had and everything. And then we, from there, we went to where their backstage area was. And Kyle, I know you were there for this because you got so excited when the Crazy Horse guys were walking by. And I didn't even, it was Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And I knew Neil, but I didn't necessarily know. But I remember you naming them all off. Hey, that's, whoever they were.
Yeah.
And then we end up in the backstage area, and I'm telling them, I'm like, wow, this is like you see on TV, because it's a sports arena. So it had this huge locker room type place. I'm like, there's no graffiti on the walls. Yeah, I can sit on that couch right there, and I won't be dirtier than I was before I sat down. I get up.
Yeah, man.
But I'm asking Brad, because Brad Smith, the bass player, singer in Blind Melon, I'm asking. He was kind of like me, and hey, where's the money kind of thing. While everybody else was like, yeah, I don't care about money. And it was kind of disheartening, because I said, you're on the cover of Rolling Stone. Mm-hmm. Album's gone gold. You're all over MTV. You got to tell me, are you making some money? And they're like, man, we're still making the same PDs we were when we were touring with you guys. Capitol had put so much money into them that even with all the sales they had, they were still nowhere near recouping. And so for those of you kids out there, looking for a music deal, be careful of those super huge advances, because you gotta kind of pay that back.
Well, the catch-22 part is that they don't credit your account for something like a year after the actual money comes in, just to protect against returns and additional expenses. And then what ends up happening is you start recording the second record and you get another advance. And even when the money comes in from the first record, you now have to pay back the second record.
Yeah. It's cross-collateralized.
Right. So get a good publishing deal. You'll make money that way.
Yeah.
Well, I always kid around that, the worst thing would be to just break even exactly. So obviously the best thing is that if you recoup and make well beyond all that, at least from a financial standpoint. But from my perspective, we kind of made out like bandits, because it's not like you really owe the money back. You only pay it back through your sales, right, Scott? So it's not like anybody's ever on the hook. So you change labels and they suddenly say, hey, you still owe us $200,000. It doesn't work that way. So
Yep.
Yeah, publishing deal. We need to get the word out, get the music. We need to get us on some TV shows. That's what needs to happen.
Okay, so
when did Kyle? When did you come in?
That's exactly where I was going to go.
I don't remember the year. Maybe it was 93, 94.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember? I don't remember.
It was pretty after we did the first record. We were on the road for a little while. It wasn't very long before we felt like we needed to move on from Pete.
I remember what happened. I had just moved from California back to Dallas, and I was surf couching. I was living on people's couches, and I went to a club one night with a friend. I didn't really want to go, and you guys know Cheney, man.
Yes,
Cheney.
Still know Cheney.
Yeah, Cheney was working the door at the club, and he said, "Hey, Kyle, here's a band that needs a drummer," and he gave me your guys' number on a piece of paper. And I called you guys, and you said, "Come on down, let's have a tryout." And I said I didn't have a set of drums, and you guys set up a set of drums for me. And I came down and tried out, learned the songs, then came back down again. And man, it was a real blessing, because I didn't have a place to live, and I didn't have a drum set, anything. And you guys said, well, you can live at the Flowerhead house with George and Eric. And it was a real blessing, man. It was, it was one of those things in life that I, really.
Yeah, I remember when you got there, and I said, so you don't have drums and you're playing these songs perfectly. How did you do that? And you said, well, I listened to it on the way down.
Can I tell you guys?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, can I tell you a little trick, man, that I didn't lay on you guys? Is I had the tape, right? And I think we discussed, we'll do these 3 songs. We'll do these 3 songs. So I learned those 3 songs and wrote them out. But what you do is you learn all the songs really well. So after those 3 or 4 songs, the band says, hey, do you want to try something else? And you say, well, I haven't really listened to anything else, but if I hear it once, I'll give it my best shot. And then you go play, you play everything perfectly.
Nice.
That's what you do. That's what you do, man. Yeah.
Thunder Jeep, I've never heard of it, but let me see how it goes.
Can you play it for me once? Let's see how I can do that.
Let me see if we can do that.
And it's a thing, man. And it was great. We went to the Mapex warehouse, and I got a set of drums. It was great, man. I loved I loved being in Austin and playing with you guys. It was really wonderful.
That was part of our Mapex was part of our we had a Gibson endorsement deal. Yeah, that was another awesome Leslie thing. She knew Jimmy Archer and some of those guys at Gibson in Nashville. And contrary to popular belief, unless you're, Slash or, somebody way up there,
they don't give you shit.
You didn't get another Les Paul? Is that what you're trying to say?
They would give us all the Les Pauls, all the Gibsons we wanted to borrow.
You could borrow whatever you wanted.
Right. They just wanted,
That's no fun.
But the Mapex part of it, I don't know if we were technically borrowed those or what happened to those, but I mean that.
They came with me back to Dallas with the cases.
See, now we have it on tape. What happened?
There they are.
Yeah. The statute of limitations is long past, Kyle.
I didn't hear a thing.
I took some green records too. Do you guys know Big Bucks Burnett in Dallas? He's a record store owner, and he did Mr. Red Festival at the Bronco Bowl in Dallas, which was a big deal. He had Tiny Tim come, a Dallas figure. He was Jimmy Page's butler, that sort of thing. I sold him to him when he had a record store, and he liked them. That was the story with the green records with me.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Does he want any more?
Yeah, maybe.
Seems like there's a lot of these green records around.
Gosh.
The green
vinyl was a great idea
until Kyle just let us know on those. But hey man, that all worked out because we still had more boxes of those things than we had room in the van for. If you remember,
how many did you get pressed, Scott? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but they probably did a few thousand, and they probably to do, for college radio and retail, they probably only needed a few hundred. So when they were done with them, they asked the band if they wanted the rest.
Like, sure, we'd turn that down.
Yeah, I get it. I wouldn't turn it down.
Right,
so
it's
I'm
a coincidence. I played on another band that was on Zoo before I played with Flowerhead. It was the band I played. It was a band called Course of Empire.
They were great.
Who was it? Tell me again. Who was it?
A band called Course of Empire. Dallas band.
Empire.
Course of Empire.
Course of. Now I'm looking it up.
Yeah, you're gonna have a new. You got a new one there, Grant.
I know, because I bought all those ones when Scott was on the show the other time. He was naming all this stuff to get. This is how I found you guys.
Yeah.
Because Scott recommended it and I wrote it down.
Yeah.
You didn't recommend Course of Empire.
He may have, but you just discovered another one. I'm here to tell you that they rock.
Another Zoo band. Yeah.
I see them.
Very intense.
Very
from
intense.
one Zoo band to another Zoo band.
Yep.
Yeah.
There it is. I see it.
Great live band.
Oh, the dog's jumping down.
Let's talk about this briefly.
Yeah.
Do you know, Grant, that this was a real thing? That it wasn't just a design, that they actually made this and photographed it?
Yeah, when Eric was on before, we talked about that a little bit.
Scott, do you know whatever happened to that? Yeah, it was like a 6-foot sculpture. I remember.
I wonder if it still exists.
I got to assume Lee Hammond has it, but who knows?
You're right,
Lee.
Was Mitch Greenblatt? Was
Yeah.
that the artist?
Yes.
So he did preliminary sketches of each band member, right?
Yep.
And he made me with big puffy cheeks, and he said, "Hey man,
Oh,
could
that's
you
you.
could you go a little bit more Mark Spitz than Gary Richrath?"
Oh my God, that's funny.
And then
There's the band.
Buzz, you made a drawing of me like with 7 gold medals around my neck, like Mark Spitz. Do you remember that? He said, "Here, more like that."
I had drawn out, what we had thought of. Faust had a picture in his head of what the girl with the creepy guys looking at the girl.
Oh my God.
That was funny, man.
I probably have it in a box.
We wanted it to be like one of those Mad Magazine things where when once it folded up, you would have, the girl, the front of the girl here, and then the guy leering at her, and then you would see the back perspective of that. And I remember I had drawn it up, just a very crude, just kind of what, and it had folded it to where it was like a squeeze box, and it turned out that the way that the jewel boxes for CDs had to be loaded, it didn't allow for that kind of folding, and so that's why we had to go with just the
Front and back.
the hubcap shot or whatever's on the other side of that.
Do you guys remember how we came up, or when we came up with the title, The People's Fuzz? We were staying with my friend Doyle in Venice. The Doyle that he worked on Ren and Stimpy at the time, and his brother was there, an artist, a director on Ren and Stimpy, and we had those Soviet fuzz boxes.
Yep.
The Sovtek.
Oh, they were like the Electro Harmonics one.
Oh man, the Big Muff.
Big Muff.
Big
Pie.
Muff. So when
Yeah,
Electro
man.
Harmonics was defunct, and they were
Big
making
Muff.
those
Yeah.
Rush. Yeah.
It was Russian, yeah. And his brother said, "Oh, it's like the People's Fuzz."
Yeah.
And we go, "Wow, huh? The People's Fuzz, okay." And we
Yep.
sort of let it stew, and like that's maybe a good album name, and we did that, man.
Yep.
But
we did use them.
before you guys settled on the People's Fuzz, you called me as a joke, and you proposed an album title, Sawbuck Hummer, and I had no idea what
Kinda
you
like
were
that.
talking about. I had to ask, what does that mean? And you explained it to me, and I thought about it, and I said, I'm good with that. And then you said, no, that was just a joke.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Grant, if you haven't spent any time in Arkansas, you might not be
I've
familiar
not.
with that term.
I've not been to
I'll see if I
Arkansas.
can
Look
say
it up.
Let's just say if you met a lady of the evening
Mhm.
and you negotiated an oral contract for
Gotcha.
And
$5.
oral.
For $5. That's
Interesting.
what that is.
I think that pretty much
And
sums it up.
I was cool with that you guys said, no, that was just a
That's not bad, actually.
I mean, it's kind of catchy.
It
Give
does
you
have a
that.
ring to it. Yeah.
It'd be controversial.
Good one, Scott.
I mean, that's promotion right there. If you use that title, that would have been
When you guys were asking me for stories, that was the first thing that came to mind.
and leave it to you. I've already seen heard your Matthew Sweet stories, and so at least we didn't get quite as to that level of the. We don't have to.
Oh,
get
you're
into
talking
it.
about Does She Talk?
Yeah, check out Grant Rock Warehouse Matthew Sweet series where Scott tells the Does She Talk story.
Mhm.
Yep.
Sounds good. We're looking it up right now.
That's a good story.
Hey, Grant, you were speaking about the guitar players and
Yes, sir.
and the combination and the play between the two. And I tell you, man, I haven't been in a band where the two guys were more friendly with each other and the whole band and modest and no, you take it. No, you take it. Well, I don't want to take it. You take it. And it was a nice change from, other situations with people that I've been in, and I took it for granted and listening back to stuff years later, it's like, wow, man, that was really good. Wow. Yeah, I kind of took it for granted how good and cool everything was until, later, in hindsight. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys
Appreciate
something
that
too.
comment.
You just reminded me. I listened back to both albums yesterday and today, and I'd forgotten that you put all that filler at the end of each of the records.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if there was a story there about why you did that or who came up with that or whatever. There's like, I don't know, did you notice that, Grant? There's like
Yeah. I remember when I
there's-
first played the first album, I was thinking, why is this going on so long? This what's is like 14, what? Sunflower's like 14 minutes or something?
Yeah. Well, it
Well,
comes down to the
it's a
fact-
good question, Scott.
I'll tell you the answer. I have the answer. So this is when CDs were a relatively new thing as far as media for a record or a tape. So the CD you could fill up with like 60 minutes or something on a side.
Yeah.
Right. I don't remember what the exact, but it was
It's
ridiculous.
like 70. Well,
It
they
was-
boosted it,
you-
but probably
You could put a ton
70,
on
I
there.
think.
So when we were done, we felt like we could, and we should fill it up. The secret track. And
We
I
just
think
did it because we could.
we could.
Well, they
and
had a
we
secret
had
track
to.
on Nevermind, so why not?
And I think the interest, the fun was just making it. It's almost like that 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, was just super fun. You remember we did the one in Arlen, Eric, when it was we would just let the tape go. I think we had a room mic, and we would just come in and out and just do things, say things, play things.
Yeah, and it continued on out of there. And the first one we kind of did the same thing too. That happened at Cedar Creek.
Yep.
Not at Smart. That's where we added all the stuff at the end of Sunflower.
Yeah.
But it has been funny to see people over the years try to find all sorts of hidden deep meanings to whatever we were saying or anything, and it's all just complete gibberish. None of it.
I just find it
drinking way too much.
There was no rhyme or reason to any of it, but so to see people try to analyze that is very.
I just find it amazing for your first record that you were allowed so much freedom, and Scott just, that's cool. I know, but all right. So we have 14 minutes at the end of.
Yep.
Scott said filler. I'm not going to use the word filler, but I mean, look at the creative freedom you guys had. How amazing!
Well, but I'm sure that there was feedback going back and forth. You get those tapes. I might say something about, this is recorded well, this is, this we need to mix differently or whatever. But, they were doing what I expected them to do. So they were allowed to continue to do what I expected them to do.
Right, exactly.
So, I know, you only put out 2 records. Did you guys just have Scott would know, did you guys just have a 2-record deal? Or when Zoo went through that situation where they dropped everybody except Matthew Sweet and I don't know who else. Tool. Everybody else is gone. Did you guys just have a 2-album deal, or did you have more than a 2-album deal?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but no new band signs a 2-album deal.
How many? What?
We had the one and then a option for the second one. I think that was as far as.
Okay, I was just curious.
The little schedule laid out 7 though.
Oh, it did.
Looked good on.
What the
Looked super good.
would be.
And the advances they wrote all the numbers for the advances. You'd be like, oh yeah.
Well, that's the thing is the label ties you for forever, but it's their option. It's not the band.
The power.
It's not a requirement. The label decides after each record whether they're going to continue on, and then if they say no, then maybe or maybe not they'll let you go and record for somebody else.
Yeah, but they laid out what the advances would be. But like Scott says, it's contingent on you've got to make it to the next one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What
I
was
have a
nice was
vision.
Not everyone knows that, and even lenders did not know that. And so the house that I'm sitting in right now was purchased in 1995 when my part-time income at the JCPenney catalog and my soon-to-be wife's elementary teacher income still wasn't quite enough. Well, I'm also in this band and we have a record contract. Can you bring that in? And of course, I turned to that page, and by the time you get the record 6 and 7, I mean, we've got 7 digits going on all day over there.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
they think that's what it's for. And Scott, that was probably, like a week or two before we got the word of when the drops were happening. So I just got that in under the wire.
Really, that's a great story.
That is a great story, and you're still there.
And you're still there.
Which is not such a great story.
In fact, that Les Paul's still hanging in the same spot.
It's the exact same spot.
Well, I
That
have
is
a vision. I wish we
right
could
there.
get a Flowerhead box set out with all the unreleased stuff, all the stuff that Scott's got, and get the band back in the studio to record 2 new tracks as a bonus on the box set. I have a vision. Whether or not that'll happen, I don't know, but I'd love to see.
There's not a lot of discards. There's just different mixes.
I know, but we put all those different mixes on the box.
But let me ask you this: we were talking about Mitch Easter. Some of that,
and I want the Mitch Easter tracks too.
Well, some of that is out there. You should
Who
be
has
able
the
to.
tapes?
Some of my
it's
YouTube. It's on YouTube's that I've done. Yeah. So if you see ones that are on either my channel, it's either I forget E. Schmitz. There's another channel called E Funk Jam.
Who's got
there's 2 different ones that has Mitch Easter stuff. It has stuff we did at Lone Star, Buzz. I don't know if you remember the Lone Star recording stuff. So there's a lot of that's quote unquote out there. Now the one that we did do, Kyle, I think you and I kind of shared some Facebook stuff on this because I think your drums are awesome on it. Scott, I don't know if you remember the track "On the Mountain" that was.
That's cool.
Buzz.
Yeah, I mean that's a long one, right?
I ran across that. It's in relation to some of our other songs. It really wasn't that long. I think what we decided was, we had Danny Levin from Asleep at the Wheel on.
Oh, he played on that
fiddle, and he played cello on that as well. His name is Danny Levin. He's a violin player, a fiddle player, primarily. Or at least what he's in my mind is mainly known for. Of course, he's played with everybody under the sun. But he came in and he plays the fiddle that's on the loop. We were experimenting with tape loops, just because we could, with sampling and tape loops at that time. And so he played the fiddle that's on that. He played the fiddle that's on the track Cows, which we kind of wanted to have a little Western
Arise
feel to it. The Arise is the loop, but then he's really prevalent. And I don't even know if I found the best mix, because it's like you were talking about, Scott. I have boxes that have DATs that'll have number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and you have all the. I don't know how
I see the box set coming. I see it coming.
I picked one that was heavy with the strings, and my mother-in-law loves it, right? But it's a complete departure from anything else we were doing, and I can only guess that the concern was we're not going to have these strings. We'd never really performed that song live, but listening back to that, Buzz, I don't know if you've seen the video for that or
I haven't.
check it out. It's on YouTube, On the Mountain, and I put it to some footage that my father-in-law had taken back in the 1950s when he was just traveling around in South America or wherever he was, and it just kind of is one of those things, a happy accident. It just fit perfectly. And
right, well, that's cool.
But
hey, Grant,
have you heard the tune? I think is one of the best songs that wasn't released on an album, and I played it for people, and they think it's pretty special too. It's a long song. It's epic. It's called Buz Zoller, and it goes from very quiet to
epic loudness and riffs.
Buz Zoller?
Yeah, it's
I've
Well,
never heard
excellent.
it.
that's
too.
Buz's last name.
That's my last name. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a
And
I
great.
haven't heard that though.
It's a great
You'll
tune.
find it on YouTube.
Everything's on YouTube, for God's sakes.
Well,
I need all this
my
stuff
only
for the
outlet.
box set, for crying out loud.
That's my only outlet for stuff that I have that that's on tape, and I just whatever I have it on, I'll just
The box set. Eric, don't share all that stuff. We're putting a box set together.
Oh, there it is, right there. Oh, my goodness.
It was not. It
Yeah, I
says
have to
here
check it
it's,
out.
It's 9:58.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, we put that on the box set.
Does that qualify for epic? An epic
Yeah.
length?
Yeah,
An
it's
epic
definitely was
adventure?
Where are the master tapes of this stuff? BMG have them?
They're here.
You got them?
Turn around. They're right there.
Yeah. Well, actually, they're in this big trunk that I have in another room. I actually still have all the reels.
You've got
From
the multi
Kaboom.
mixes?
I've got the 2-inch multi tracks.
We can do a remix.
Wow.
We could do a complete remix of Kabloom.
Oh,
I don't know what happened to the ones from the People's Fuzz, but I have at least what I think is
God,
all.
I
the
bet you those
tracks.
things need baked now. I bet they're all sticky.
But there was, I haven't looked at them in a long time. I mean, they've been very climate controlled, but yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God. I'm getting all worked up. I don't even know how to put a box set together, but boy, I would love to do that.
Yeah, guys, I mean, you may not have seen them, but basically anything you find that has Flowerhead and it's something that wasn't on one of our releases, it's kind of odd because other people could get away with posting things on YouTube that was from our CDs and they get away with it. I try to post something, a video that I make in it. They have the technology where they.
Oh yeah, I know.
It tells me I'm stealing it and I can't use it. So, but if
Well,
I use
your
something that
stuff-
wasn't released on the CD, I can get away with it. And so there's anything that looks like somebody's father-in-law's old home movies, and it's going to be my wife and my brother-in-law are going to be the little kids in there, and then their grandparents. Any of those that have that kind of feel to it, those are going to be songs that we either didn't release from the People's Fuzz or that we recorded during the pre-production of People's Fuzz that didn't make the record, or that we recorded after the People's Fuzz on our ADATs. And there's quite a few of them out there. I don't know if you guys remember whatever the Porcupine song was, whatever we called that. When you hear it, you'll remember it.
True Fly.
Oh, wait.
We did a tune called Fly Paper Pie.
Fly paper.
Yeah, I have that one too. I don't know because some of these I posted on Facebook at one point, and some of them I posted on YouTube. But Fly Paper Pie is I've got a recording of that, and I don't know that if that one's on YouTube or not, but I could get it out there. But I know the Porcupine one is.
Yeah, no. Yep. There are.
I'm just curious though. So after the Zoo Entertainment fiasco where everyone got laid off, you guys got dropped.
Yep.
I'm just curious, Buzz, what'd you do after that?
That really was kind of the end of the line for all of us. I think the road had been hard the whole time. Like we had never really made any money. We were still just as poor as we were when we started, but a little older, a little more wiser, a little maybe jaded. And for me personally, like I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I was in my mid to late 20s and I was ready to move on. And, it was a hard road to just kind of, granted there's plenty of fun. I tell people, I spent my early 20s pretty much in bars every day, which it's hard to argue. Like it was a great experience, but I think we were all just kind of like I didn't feel like I was ready to. We were literally going to have to kind of start over from square one, and I don't think any of us were quite ready to dive in again. We had kind of, I hate to say it, but given it our shot. I mean, we gave it a shot. We followed our dreams and followed our hearts, and we got so close, and it just didn't happen. And I think we all kind of had realization that this is that we've done it, and let's see what else life has to offer.
Well, I know when Eric and I were talking before, I mean, you guys played for quite a while after, Fuzz came out.
Actually,
how long?
With this band, no. I mean, I would say we kind of played our last shows in the summer of 1995.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
So
where
I
we were
guess it
back to
wasn't-
doing those one-offs and
Okay.
was
So
hot
it
and
wasn't that
sweaty.
long after the whole thing fell apart.
right.
It kind of
Okay.
did. It kind of did.
Now, Buzz, I must say you should be watching Kyle down there because you're crushing his dreams because he still keeps.
I know he's keeping the faith.
I like
Somebody's
it.
gotta do
And
What am I
do
doing?
too. Well,
Well, Kyle, what
just
did you do
basically
at-
saying I'm wanting Buzz to speak for himself because we still have the dream. We still.
What did you do, Kyle, after the whole zoo fiasco? You got drugged and everything.
I moved back to Dallas with a couple of boxes of Green Records and a drum set.
Damn Green Records.
Yeah,
Dragging them all over hell. Yeah.
that was my strategic reserve for financial sources. Yeah, you can do a lot with $40. Man, so I was in Dallas and I auditioned for this band called Vibrolux, which
Vibrolux. I've heard of a
yeah.
band called Vibrolux. Well, I know there was an amp, but the band. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, no, they got a deal with Polydor. I think it was Polydor. So I auditioned and we did some demos with Robbie Adams. Small world. Yeah, very small world. He married a friend of mine, another small world that lives in LA, man. Yeah. Did a demo with them and they offered me the gig at a certain pay. And I said, I can't do it for that sort of. So I was negotiating and I said, I need more money. And they said no. So I didn't get the gig, man. I guess I wasn't negotiating. So I didn't get the gig and they were friends, but didn't get that gig. After that, man, it was tough sledding for me for a long time. And I barely stayed out of jail, barely in and out. I didn't stay out of jail. It was a hard time. But now it's been 8 years with, I don't drink anymore and, or anything that comes with it. So the last 8 years have been pretty cool. And in my drum room here, I got a drum sets and a PA, and I play some, some bands get back together and I play for fun in a surf rock act.
Oh, I love that.
I'm with guys that are super into it. So I don't know that much about it, but they know everything. And sometimes I used to play in a Butthole Surfers tribute act. Again, super fans, man, just super fans. So I didn't know a lot about, I knew a little bit about Butthole Surfers like everybody, but it was so weird. It was so absurd. Why would you do a tribute act? How can you copy something that's so spontaneous and
Never heard of it.
Right.
Never heard of a tribute act from them.
So why not, right?
Right.
Why not try it? Yeah, man. And not really anything else seriously. It's been a good time. Yeah. It's been good.
Well, at least you're playing. What's
I
the
am.
surf? Does the surf band have a name? I'm just curious.
Yeah, the Crabs.
That's great. Are you
We're playing
instrumental? Is it all instrumental? Good.
All
I
this
gotta step away.
no
going.
vocals. No vocals. We're playing a Hot Link festival in 2 weekends in East Texas.
Nice.
Fun.
Good for you.
I like Hot Links,
That's fun.
I love surf though. Oh, I love surf.
I like it too. You don't have to think as a drummer, and that makes it more fun. Yeah, for me.
That's great, Kyle.
Yeah.
Somebody's carrying the torch.
But Buzz, did you ever play with anybody after the band was over? Because you just sounded like, I know you've got all those guitars in that room, but
I didn't initially. I kind of just, I got a job, married, got a job, had some kids, and was happy. I'm in Florida now, so we moved to Florida in around 2002, 2000, somewhere around there, with 2 kids. And eventually I did find, I played in a cover band for about 2 or 3 years, which was super fun because I never really got kind of to do that. My only band was Flowerhead, and we didn't do covers. We would try them and butcher them, so we would just play our own song.
Hey, you did a big cover. You did in the live show. You did a covers medley.
Yeah, man, we sure did.
Super fun. So I played for a while. I played for a little while, and I kept to be honest, the guitars got put away after the band broke. I'd say we didn't break up, but the band kind of ended. The guitars went away. The gear went into the garage.
Wow.
I really didn't touch it for a really long time, and as my kids got older and they started asking questions, and I started just wanting to reconnect to my youth a little bit, they all came out, and that's when I found a band to play with for a little while, and that cool. Just kind of fizzled away, but I kept the guitars and play them every once in a while. This is my office, so I work a corporate job. I'm a marketing manager for Foot Locker. So it's mostly remote. So I have my office where I can literally turn around and crank up my Marshall at the drop of a hat. So it's pretty fun. So it's still in me.
Yeah.
I don't have the same drive or desire to really play or write, really, to be honest, at this point. But it's still in my blood. I mean, to be honest, if there was if someone said we want Flowerhead to play next week, like, I would be on a plane in 2 seconds.
There you go. You never know.
I know how to play. I mean, Eric, you know how to play all this. It's in us. I mean, we played them.
I could play. I could play it all tomorrow.
I could play it all tomorrow.
That is beautiful.
Even a lot of the bass parts now, because I'm mainly playing bass these days.
Are you really?
With my brother's band, which is just a living room band that does covers, like 70s and classic rock and stuff. But so when I had to step away for a minute, my wife's I locked her out before I got on this thing. So she's been locked outside.
Oh, man.
Oh. So let me ask you guys, I don't know if Grant knows this, but Faust had another life outside of this, where he was a champion sailor.
Yep.
And well, that was the question. I think that part of why Flowerhead didn't continue to some degree, from what I remember, is that Faust wanted to take a shot at getting into the Olympics.
That's correct.
Yep.
And competed on a national level to try to do that. Is he? You say he's still sailing?
Yeah, he I won't get into specifics, but he's like an executive over a whole
association.
Yeah,
sailing association.
Yeah.
Yep, I just talked to him about a month ago.
Yeah, he travels all over the world doing regattas and just living the
life,
the yacht club life. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
got a couple really young kids that are just amazing.
Yep.
Yep. Buzz's kids are amazing. They're grown up.
Yep.
I mean, it just perfectly suits his personality.
It does. It does.
Exactly. He's one of the most laid back people in the world outside of on stage,
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, no, it's a shame he's not here, because he's got some stories, and he was at the heart of all of this. I mean,
well,
we would love to have him, but
we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
We can get him rounded up. We'll do it again.
I'm game. Let's bring him in.
Yeah. Well, boys, I don't know
This
if
is
I have
great.
anything more to add. It seems like we covered the whole career pretty much in an hour and a half.
Pretty much.
Anybody else
I
have
don't know if
anything?
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that your entire career, an hour and a half.
It's
but
fun.
Well,
I'll take
Just-
it.
we don't need a 10-part,
I'll take it. Exactly.
documentary.
Netflix series.
don't know.
10-part Netflix series.
I just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, Grant, let me tell
Yeah.
you one last thing.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
One of the best experiences I've had playing in a band was when we played with Cheap Trick. We played with Cheap Trick, and the first night we played with them, after we played, we were backstage, and the venue brought in 2 pizzas, man, pizzas and beer. So we were
Wow.
eating pizza and drinking beer, and Cheap Trick was playing right, about 5 or 10 feet away and we had just played 2, and I thought, I don't know if it gets better than pizza and beer and listening
Cheap
to Cheap
Trick.
Trick right after
Live.
you open for
Right.
it. It was so cool, man. Free beer, free pizza, and having that proximity to Cheap Trick. I really did think
I know
that was a high point for me, man. It was a high point.
Yeah.
It wasn't
you
that the
gotta
first
check
tour.
out the outtakes. The Rick
Wasn't that
Grant.
the
Oh
first-
yeah, we talk about Cheap Trick in the outtakes.
Wasn't that the first tour with what's his name? The bass player was back.
Oh,
Peterson?
Tom
Yeah,
Peterson.
everybody
the
was
first time he was back. or
Yeah.
something like that.
right, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
God,
he came
what-
back in. Well, I think he came back what 88, 89.
Was it?
But if you're talking,
was
what
there.
year was that, Kyle? When you were
95. It was 94,
95.
95.
Bust,
It was
be busted, maybe.
before we recorded the album.
Yeah, I think it was.
It was, I believe it was after we recorded the album, but before it was released.
Hmm.
And remember, it was just kind of a little mini, just a part of, just a leg on there.
Down the
That
south.
was-
Well, Busted came out in 1990, so it wouldn't have been that. Oh, Woke Up with
first-
the Monster came out in 94. Must have been in between Woke Up with the Monster and Red Ant album that came out in 97. Must have been Woke Up with the Monster tour, I bet,
Yep.
when you guys were playing with them.
Super fun. For
That was a great opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Good.
had good times. I mean, it was a lot of work, but now you have something to talk about. And we've documented it
So
here
you
today.
just talked about it.
Right
Now I
on.
don't got to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, I guess we can, unless you have anything else to talk about, we can wrap this one up.
No, I think that this is amazing. It's great to see you, Scott. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to see you.
I'm
And
glad to
Kyle,
bring it-
Happy to see you.
Right on.
So well.
Likewise.
Congratulations.
I'm glad everybody
Especially on
could
the
come.
sobriety. Awesome.
Yeah,
Mm.
congrats, Kyle.
Yep, that's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey,
It's-
things could have ended up different. You turned
Hey, man.
everything around and look at you here today. It's
It
great.
ain't for everybody. It's a weird trip. It's a weird trip, man. But hey, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
All makes you stronger. All right, boys. Well, let's sign this one off. I want to thank Eric, Buzz, Kyle, and Scott for coming on Grant's Rock
Thank you, man.
Warehouse. And
Thank you.
hey, if we ever get Faust on here, I don't know. You never know. We could do it again.
And
Yeah.
Grant, thank you for keeping the flame alive on this band.
Exactly.
Right on.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, like we
And-
talked about, Scott, when you were going through all those bands, when we were on the Matthew Sweet show, I was just going, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" Because this is the band that you really talked up. One of them,
Mm.
and I don't know. I don't even know how I ended up getting a hold of Eric.
Mm.
How did that
Well,
happen?
it was because of that, because I had
You
watched the whole,
sent
whole
me a
thing with Scott.
message.
I had watched the whole thing with Scott, just hanging, on the edge of my seat for him to mention Flowerhead. And then he did, of course, and it was great. But yeah, Scott, I mean, one thing I always made me feel good about the thing that we were doing is, you had signed Matthew, right? And that was a big deal, and there everything beyond that. But with us, I always felt like we were more of your more of a baby that came from the very birth as opposed to just adopting, if that makes sense. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I had very, very high hopes.
So did we. So did we, Scott.
Probably a better way to say that than the birth is it felt like a true discovery.
Yes.
Right. Whereas Matthew was kind of a known entity, I guess.
And Grant, I do want to mention that Flowerhead is on. We're on Apple Music. We're
Oh,
on
yeah.
Spotify. So please, we
Oh,
I
want
will
so
put the
excited.
links.
Some streams.
I'll put the links down below.
get some streams going.
Mm-hmm.
That when I first hooked up with these guys on Facebook many years ago, the one question they had for me is, how do we get our music on streaming services? And I didn't have an answer for them. I said, someone can contact the lawyers at Sony, which now owns Volcano, which controls BMG, and somebody's just got to push a button and get them to do it. But I have no idea who that is.
Yep.
And then so I left them with that, and then maybe 2 or 3 years later, I was just kind of doing a web search on Flowerhead, and all of a sudden it came up. So I was very excited to write to them and say, hey, it happened.
No,
I don't know
absolutely.
who made it happen. I don't care.
At least it's
I
out
know
there.
it feels good. It feels like it's there for posterity now. So.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, I know we've exchanged a lot of messages to this effect. None of that was ever about the money at all. At all. It was about the posterity. But Buzz says is vinyl's making a comeback, but all that physical media is only going to last so long. So the real key to immortality to us was being in the digital, out in the, not just on a digital recording, but out in the digital space.
And send anyone out there. Exactly. Posterity.
There you go.
I'm very glad that it showed up.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And I'll put those links down below because everyone should check out this band. They need more notoriety, and that's what I like about my channel, is about promoting these bands no one's talking about. And hopefully we can turn on some people to Flowerhead. And you never know.
Very cool.
May have that box set, working on that box set right now.
If you get some of your April Wine fans listening to Flowerhead,
Exactly.
you've done your job.
I know.
Exactly.
Well, I do have a quick story. I did a show with a gentleman the other day. One of my listeners, sometimes I throw it out there and they want to do a show. And he, off the top, he didn't even know I did that Flowerhead show with you, Eric. And he mentioned you on how big you guys used to be like in Massachusetts. He was just in conversation talking about Nirvana and Soundgarden and and Flowerhead, just off the cuff, mentioned Flowerhead and how much they got so much radio play up there.
That's great.
He had no idea that I even knew Flowerhead. Just mentioned off the cuff.
Yeah, that is the area where we heard ourselves on the radio for the first time and almost crashed into a toll booth.
And he told me how great, just off the cuff, how great Flowerhead was.
Yeah, what was that? The bar that we played there all the time? That was the restaurant, like a Middle East.
Middle East Cafe. Yeah.
Called the Middle East.
It was in Cambridge.
Middle East.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then don't forget Club Babyhead in Providence.
Yes, Club Babyhead.
Yep.
Oh,
but he said you guys were just incredible.
Well,
and right. I didn't even have to really say anything. I'm just sitting here going, oh shit. Cool.
That's cool.
So you're still known, evidently. You're big up in Massachusetts.
I'll take the little wins here or there.
I mean, he used you guys in the same sentence as Nirvana. I'm just going to throw that out.
All right. Take it.
I got a royalty check a long time ago from Singapore, and it was for Acid Rain, but it was for a Muzak version of Acid Rain.
Nice.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the Muzak version of Acid Rain.
Oh, I'm there. Go.
No.
All right, boys. Well, we've done it. I want to thank you guys once again. And if we ever want to do this again, let me know.
All
You
right.
know, it was fun. Nice talking to you.
Thanks.
Nice seeing you again, Scott. Nice seeing you again, Eric. And nice meeting you, Buzz and Kyle.
you,
It was
Right
a
on.
blast.
Thanks, man.
So
Thanks, Kyle.
I'll get this one up
See
here
ya.
shortly. So good night, everybody. We'll
Good to see
ya.
you, Scott, Buzz, Eric,
Great to
Grant.
see you, Kyle.